help me for welcoming back to the stage Sir Ray Sager. Thank you. You haven't seen it in a long time, have you, Ray?
No, actually, I haven't. I heard that Quentin Tarantino said this was his second favorite horror film, and it actually holds up. I mean, you know, a lot of the gore, especially stuff that was shot on second unit, and a lot of like this shower scene where her head goes right into the shower head, and then the reveal where you would actually see the water coming out and the blood coming out and all that stuff. That stuff that we did never made it into the film. It may be, they've added 3 minutes, which I think is going to screen them in Toronto in April, and some of that stuff may be back in there. There's about 9 minutes of cuts that were taken out by the MPAA, and so they're not in any of the original prints, but they are apparently in a digital copy. What did happen with the guy who, mercifully, they didn't actually show where the car went out of control and crashed into a fence, and they actually cut out of that before any of that happened, so you didn't actually see the guy get hit by a car, my first shot I'm directing. But I did go see him in the hospital, and I walk in the door, you know, and I'm feeling terrible because I feel very guilty, but I put him there, and as soon as he sees me, he starts moaning. And he's like, and he's holding his leg and he's moaning, and I'm going, oh, Tiger, I'm really sorry. You know, I've been busy directing and I haven't had a chance to see you and I feel terrible about this. And he went, oh, yeah, thanks for coming. So I leave the room, I run into the nurse, I said, how long is he gonna be like that? They said, like what? I said, well, how long has he been, you know, I mean, he's gonna be here for what, a month or what? She said, he should have been out of here a week ago. She said, there's nothing wrong with him. Anyway, he sued the company for $30,000 and won. So, there you go. You can never have enough insurance. Some of the scenes I directed, if you want to know what actually a second unit director did, was I directed some of the dialogue scenes, and actually by default was the reason they had to bring in a second unit director is, A, the director and the DP, who were best friends, went to Concordia together, were fighting through this whole thing, and so they double shoot everything, which took a lot of time. Plus, every time you had to shoot in the mine, there was only one way in and one way out, and nobody figured on it. It was a nightmare. And as a real mine, the only part of the mine that was a set was where they were actually climbing up and down the ladder. That part was a set, but the rest of it was a real mine, and difficult to shoot in, and freezing too. And then one time, we actually had to wrap shooting like we lost about half a day because there was a methane scare in there. So, you know, it was a lot of hardship.
Thanks to Tiger.
Yeah, thanks to Tiger. Tiger, my buddy, who probably made more money than anybody on the show. I think it was about a 25-day shoot. I did about almost 2 weeks of second year directing on it because we were so far behind, and I did like the laundry scene, the laundromat scene. I did most of the stuff with Don Franks, who played the deputy, the sheriff rather, because George, the director, couldn't stand him. And Don was extremely eccentric. He's actually, he's Jewish and he thinks he's an Indian. I don't know where this came from, but he has hair down, you know, and when he came in, he wouldn't cut his hair. That was the first thing, so he does, he's wearing a kind of wacky wig. But he has hair down there, and he wears you know, an Indian war bonnet and stuff. I saw him in it with the whole thing and a loincloth and all that stuff. He's quite into it, or was at that time. Now he's just kind of eccentric. I haven't seen him doing that kind of stuff, but I've worked with him since. And he's actually a great actor. He's a Broadway actor. I don't know what happened, but he hated doing this horror film, and he was like, obviously doing it for the money. And so all the horror stuff involving him, like the stuff with the dog and picking up the bleeding heart, I was given all that stuff because the director, George, didn't want to deal with the guy. So I did all the scene, anything where he drove into the mine yard at night, and also where the bartender gets killed at night. I did that one, and I did many times the the guy's driving and then they find the first heart in the box. I had to do that. The exec producers of Montreal kept sending it back and saying, this is, it's not right, it's not right, it's not right. And finally, actually I saw, yeah, I now know what they meant. It did work. Anyway, I will now take any questions if you have any. None? None? Yes?
I was going to ask, with the remake that came out, I was just wondering what your opinion is about other producers taking your work and remaking it and repackaging it for a younger audience, so to speak. And
well, I'll tell you, I haven't seen the remake. Everybody has said it's not that as good as this, and I think I'm glad it was done in 3D. I think 3D is a great venue for horror. I think if used properly, it actually can create quite a surround in terms of how the effects are done and how they affect an audience, and can really put them into it even more than just doing a two-dimensional thing. So I'm very much in favor, and I think you're going to see a lot more remakes. And you may see remakes of remakes, like House of Wax should have been done in 3D, the remake. It would have been way more effective, and they should actually do another version of House of Wax and do it in 3D. So I'd actually like to see some of these movies come back, but in a different media, so they have actually more power to them if they're really done properly with really good directors and producers. Yeah. Anything else? Yep.
Just that scene with the dogs, they actually look crazy.
But I said about Dan Conway, who was the dog trainer, that he is not a dog trainer. He is a trainer of wild dogs. And I remember when I was doing that scene that Don Franks was there, and I did about, it wasn't quite getting what I wanted. I said, okay, let's do it again. He says, Ray, he says, if this dog comes at me one more time, I'm going to kill it. I went, okay, Don. I said, look, we're just going to do it one more time, and that's it, okay? So, and then the next time it worked, thank God. But the dogs were really going at him because they were just wild dogs that the dog trainer got together and, whatever. And you can see, so that's why they look so authentic.
Question in the back.
Yeah.
I know this film was notoriously censored by the MPAA. Just out of curiosity, what was everyone's reaction to getting that heavily censored?
George went ballistic. I could tell you, as a director, he went ballistic about it. Everybody was getting censored. I was just trying to recall exactly what happened. It was during the Reagan era, and some incident happened, and they were censoring television too, because I remember I was a big fan of Crime Story. And the first season of Crime Story was very, very bloody. And the second season was very, very tame, and then it went off the air. And that was because somewhere in that period, they just decided to draw a line about violence. But it was way before Columbine, so it was like something else happened, and then they drew the line on it, and they were just cutting everything in ribbons. I mean, George that's a big sore point with him as a director, and when he talks about a lot. But everybody, all the way into the early '90s, we were all getting cut, and I used to go back. I did some other horror films and thrillers and stuff like that with lots of violence or nudity or whatever, and I'd have to go to LA, and I'd sit there and I'd screen and I'd recut it, and then I'd screen it again, but I'd recut it and I'd screen it again, till we got to, because you never wanted to do that much. You didn't want to do wholesale slaughter, because that's what you were selling. So you would just try to go frames by frames to get their approval. But it was for everybody. It was a real hardship, because the audiences were disappointed too. So actually now it's a lot looser than it was. Anything else? Anybody? Anybody? You gonna ask me about any of the old films too? Yeah.